Hi, Christina from Proverbs 31 Woman here, and today I'm going to show you how to make your own freezer jam without a recipe. It's really very easy. But first I want to discuss why you might prefer to make freezer jam as opposed to jam that is shelf stable and that you've run through a water bath canner. Today my reasons are I have just a small amount of fruit that I want to get out of the freezer and turn into jam, and rather than use up a lot of energy to can them, I know my family's going to go through it pretty quick, so I'm just going to make freezer jam. Another reason might be that you want to control the amount of sugar in the jam. That's very easy to do when you're making freezer jam. With the jam that you're running through a canner and that you want to be safe and shelf stable, you have to be much more careful about adjusting the recipe. You really have to know what you're doing because that sugar helps preserve, and it also is what makes the pectin that you have to add to the jam make the jam gel up. So if you adjust the sugar, you might not get jam that gels up, so you end up with a syrup instead. Those are the two major reasons you might want to do this, and another might be maybe you don't can yet and you just want a simple, easy job to put up some food. I will mention really briefly that you can learn to adjust the amount of sugar in jam if you use Pomona's pectin, which is a product that is a little bit harder to find than your ordinary pectin that you can just grab at Walmart. And it is a little bit more expensive. But if you follow the directions on there, you will see that you can adjust the amount of sugar in your jam pretty easily. So one thing I really do like about making freezer jam is it's quick and easy and not time consuming at all, but I can leave out the sugar even if I want to, just put a tiny amount in. You'll find that when you're canning, there's really no such thing as a no sugar added jam that is actually shelf stable and safe. You know, you can put in fruit juice or honey and all those things, but it's still sugar. So anyway, here we go. All I'm going to do is I have a mixture of blueberries and strawberries that I had in my freezer, just a small amount. It's maybe 3 cups, but you don't have to worry about measurements when you're doing this. The only thing is you do want a pan that's pretty heavy duty because you're going to be boiling. And you want to have plenty of headspace in your pan because you're going to be boiling it and it's going to bubble up, and you don't want it to bubble up onto your stove and make a huge mess that'll be sticky and hard to clean up. So I'm just going to turn the heat on, and I've got it fairly high, so maybe like a medium high, and I'm going to start with a cup of sugar. I happen to have made this before, so I know that a cup of sugar is more than enough added sugar for my family. I would start with a small amount, and you can taste it as you go and add sugar accordingly. So really take advantage of the fact that you don't have to add tons of sugar. This is basically a bumbleberry jam. Bumbleberry just means mixed berry. And I do have a safe canning recipe for that on my blog, and I'll put the link in the description. But to give you an idea of how much sugar we're saving here, normally I would do 3 cups of various berries for my canned bumbleberry jam, and I would have to use 6 cups of sugar. Big difference. And I will tell you that my children still like this with less sugar, so that's a big bonus. So these berries are still kind of frozen, so I'm probably going to turn down the heat just a little bit so the juices will get flowing and nothing will burn. And I'm just stirring in the sugar. Now the whole idea with this jam is these are the only 2 ingredients. We're just cooking down the berries so that all the juices flow out, and then we're going to boil it. And boiling it is what's going to make it gel up. Now, another important point is that when you're making a freezer jam and you're not using pectin, then you have to make sure that whatever fruit you're using, it has a higher pectin content. In this case, it's strawberries. Apples are another one that are pretty high pectin. And you can just go online and look up high pectin fruits, and that will explain it to you. And then if you're wanting to make a jam that doesn't have a high pectin fruit, you can just add some of that high pectin fruit. Apples, people do that a lot with, because if you use a small amount of a nice sour apple, it doesn't add a ton of flavor, but it gives it the pectin it needs. And the other option is, of course, you could just go ahead and use store-bought pectin if you like. But it's kind of nice not to have to use it. By the way, on my blog, I also have a whole article about what pectin is made from and why you need it for certain things in canning and the differences between the brands and how you can even make your own. So I'll put that in the description too. So you can see now that the berries have released a lot of juice already. So I don't need to worry about the berries themselves burning. So I'm going to turn up the heat because we want this to boil. And you want to stir it often so that it doesn't scorch. So I have my thermometer ready. I highly recommend that you use a thermometer. There are other ways that you can test jam or jelly for doneness. That means when it's ready to gel. But what I have found is that often I end up overcooking the jam when I use that method, and while that makes it edible, it makes it hard as a rock too. So you can see this is boiling. So I'm going to get my thermometer out, and what I'm looking for is a temperature of 221 degrees Fahrenheit. I think that's 105 Celsius. I'm just, you know, almost any thermometer will go to that temperature. If you have a candy thermometer to put on the side of your pan, so much the better. Okay, my thermometer says it's done, so I'm going to turn this off. Go ahead and stir it one more time and kind of remove it from the heat. Okay, so you want canning jars. I do recommend canning jars just because they're less likely to crack and break. And the ones that are straight up and down instead of having a curved shoulder are much less likely to break in the freezer. But I have hot jam, which is what I want. I need to make my jars hot, or at least pretty warm, or they will crack. So I like to just run them under tap water. It's really easy. I try not to get water inside here, but on the outside. Now I'm just going to ladle the jam into the jars. And I want to leave about 1/4 of an inch head space. That means the space between the top of the jar and where the jam is in the jar. So this first ring right here is as tall as I want it to be. You can make it less with freezer jam, that's fine. Try not to make a mess. Once your jam's in the jar, you just want to put a lid on it. I like to reuse the lids from when I have pressure canned or water bath canned, but if you don't have those around, it's just fine to use an unused canning lid. And you want to pop this in the fridge and use it within, say, a month, maybe 2. Or you can put it in the freezer and just use it whenever. Don't be alarmed, by the way, if when you put your jam in the jar, it looks a little bit runny. That's okay. As long as you've used a thermometer, you know that as that jam cools, it's going to gel up. I think that's it. I hope you enjoy your jam.